You're watching The World. Welcome back. And now border clashes have erupted again between Pakistan and Afghanistan's Taliban forces, with each side accusing the other of breaking a fragile ceasefire. Residents fled the Afghan city of Spin Boldak overnight, which lies along the 1,600-mile border between the two countries. A medical worker in the nearby city of Kandahar told BBC Pashto that 4 bodies had been brought to a local hospital. 4 other people were wounded. 3 were reportedly wounded in Pakistan. There has been sporadic fighting between the two countries in recent months, while Afghanistan's Taliban government has also accused Pakistan of carrying out airstrikes inside the country. Both sides have confirmed they exchanged fire overnight, but each blamed the other for initiating the 4 hours of fighting. Well, let's have Hamilton Odunze live from Boston, Massachusetts now to discuss the border dispute between both sides. Good to have you this weekend, Hamilton. Let's talk about the escalating risk of this fight between the two countries. How likely is the recent Pakistan-Afghanistan border clash to escalate into a full-blown conflict, and what are the potential triggers?
Well, thank you, Olivia, for having me. The conflict is very likely to escalate into a prolonged cycle of intense localized fighting. And this is because of unresolved issues like the insurgents by the TTP, which is the Taliban militants. Pakistan is frustrated with the Taliban's failure to stop the TTP insurgents. There will continue to be a border dispute between these two countries because of the long-standing Durand Line, which remains unresolved. The Durand Line is the 1,600-mile borderline, I believe, between Afghanistan and Pakistan, and it was established by the British in 1893. However, the escalation you talked about may not lead into a full-scale war, because the Taliban cannot carry out a full-scale war against their opponent, but both sides prefer localized conflicts over full-scale war.
So let's talk about Taliban's role now. How does the Taliban's involvement in the conflict impact regional stability, and what's their strategy in responding to Pakistan's allegations of militant activity? Let's, keep it moving quickly because of time. Yeah.
Well, the Taliban's involvement in the conflict destabilizes the region by increasing it increases refugee flows, which puts pressure on neighbors like Iran and Pakistan. The threat of terrorism also remains high in the area, making economic recovery and growth difficult. Their involvement also complicates efforts to resolve border issues, as regional powers like China and Russia push their own interests and agenda. In essence, the Taliban's action create transnational threats and economic instability, challenging regional security and prompting complex diplomatic strategies that are very difficult to implement.
Let's talk about the border dispute. A lot of people are unaware of, how this whole thing started. So let's talk about history. What are the historical roots of the Pakistan-Afghanistan border dispute, and how can they be resolved amid current tensions?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the root of the conflict is the 1,600-mile Durand Line, established in 1893 by British diplomat Sir Henry Durand to define the boundary of British India. It has remained very controversial because it cuts through Pashtun tribal lands, which Afghanistan has never accepted, and it continues to be a source of tension between Pakistan and Afghanistan. The British used the Durand Line to secure their interests against Russia. The Durand Line against Russia and made Afghanistan into a buffer state. Pakistan inherited the border in 1947, but no Afghan government since then has recognized it. And therefore, this has remained a source of conflict for the two countries.
So, should international organizations like the UN or regional players like Qatar and Turkey intervene to broker a lasting ceasefire? And what's the best approach these two can, come in with? Because we know that Turkey and Qatar particularly have been at the forefront of, regional stability, especially with Israel, if you remember. So, what's the best approach that these countries can, migrate into issues like this?
Well, the question of whether international organizations and regional players should intervene in the conflict involves a very complex debate with valid arguments on both sides. Most analysts favor diplomatic mediation and humanitarian aid over hard power intervention, which includes war and really hard power intervention, which has not been effective in the past. Some of the points include that intervention could prevent regional instability. As you mentioned, Qatar has a reputation as a neutral mediator, but opponents of international intervention argue that there's a fine line between intervention and respect of sovereignty. It is easy to cross this line intentionally or unintentionally. This has made international intervention very complex, and countries and organizations are very reluctant to intervene.
So I will divert your attention now to regional players. So how does the conflict impact regional security, particularly with Iran and China having stakes in that area?
Well, yes, you're right. China and Iran, they have interests in the area. For example, China has business interests in the region. The conflict destabilizes the region by fueling cross-border terrorism, creating refugee flows. In the case of China, it hinders China's Belt and Road Initiative investment. Additionally, the ties between Iran and Pakistan are threatened because the conflict detracts from meaningful economic engagement and dialogue. It creates a complex security environment in which the focus shifts from economic growth to insecurity. Both Iran and Pakistan are now facing their shared border and seeking to formalize trade, but the conflict complicates these efforts both from China and Iran to engage in meaningful economic conversation with both countries.
Right. Thank you so much, Hamilton Odunze, for the time today on The World. He is international affairs analyst. We had to touch on the Pakistan and Afghan border crisis.